I used to think the ocean could fix anything. You grow up thinking that a little sun, a deck chair, and salt air could wash off whatever your life was dragging behind you. A cruise is supposed to be peace on a floating hotel. That's what I thought when I booked this baby moon. Just me, her, and the quiet rhythm of waves, a last breath before everything changes. But here I am, 5 months into the pregnancy, and somewhere between the shuffleboard court and formal dinner night, I told my wife the one thing I knew would break her. It was a Wednesday. At least, I think it was. Cruise days bleed together like watercolor on wet paper. We'd had a great day just before, laughing in the pool, virgin pina coladas, a game of trivia where she completely crushed me. She wore this green dress that hugged her bump in a way that made her glow. God, she looked beautiful. But that night, after the sunset faded and the lights from the pool deck flickered on, I felt this weight. Not from the baby, not from her, from me. A pressure I couldn't name yet, like holding your breath for so long you forget what air feels like. We were in our cabin when she asked. "You're quiet," she said. "Weird quiet." I brushed it off, said I was tired. She didn't buy it. She never did. "I know when something's wrong," she said, eyes narrowing. "Don't lie to me." So I told her. I told her I didn't know what I was doing with my life, that I wasn't sure about anything, that I felt like I'd been running someone else's race for years, and I didn't even know where the finish line was anymore. And then, God help me, I said it. I told her I was struggling to feel attracted to her. The silence in the room didn't feel real at first, like the air had been sucked out. She blinked once, twice. Then she said, "Because I'm fat now." "No," I started. But what was I going to say? That wasn't it? That I hadn't meant it like that? She was 5 months pregnant. Her body was doing the most incredible thing a body could do, and I just made her feel like a defect. "I'm tired," she said, but her voice didn't match her words. She turned away, curled under the thin cruise blanket. I watched the muscles in her back tighten. That night I lay next to her and didn't sleep. The next morning, she didn't speak to me. Not when I brought her coffee. Not when I tried to hold her hand during the safety drill. Not when we sat at breakfast, her poking at scrambled eggs while I died a slow death over pancakes. I'd broken something I didn't know how to fix. We met when we were 18, college freshmen in the same dorm. She had this way of speaking like everything she said had been carefully measured but still managed to surprise you. The first time we kissed was outside a diner after a midnight study session. She smelled like vanilla and printer ink. We'd been together 10 years. Married too. She was my person before I even knew what that meant. She'd been glowing since we found out about the pregnancy, and I'd been proud, really proud. I rubbed cocoa butter on her belly every night. I made late-night runs for mango sorbet. I watched her belly move when she laughed too hard. But inside me, something had started to shift. Not because she was changing, but because I didn't know who I was becoming. I didn't recognize the man I saw in the mirror anymore. Work had become a treadmill, endless, noisy, thankless. Friends had drifted. My parents were calling less. The only place I felt anchored was with her. But even that anchor started to feel heavy. I thought the cruise would help. I thought the ocean would reset something. The second night, she cried herself to sleep. She didn't think I could hear her. She had her back to me, curled around the pillow, trying to muffle the sobs. But the walls were thin, the bed even thinner. Every shake of her shoulders felt like a fault line opening in mine. I got up, sat on the balcony, stared at the dark sea. No stars, just black water and the churn of the ship. I don't know how long I was out there. Eventually, I came back inside, laid down beside her. She shifted slightly, just enough to say she knew I was there, but not enough to let me back in. I whispered, "I'm sorry." She didn't respond. I felt like I had cheated on her without ever touching another woman, like I had betrayed her body, her trust, her sense of safety, and maybe I had. Day 3. We were scheduled for a couples massage. She didn't cancel. She didn't say anything at all. We walked there in silence. The elevator ride was quiet. The hallway smelled like eucalyptus and lemon. During the massage, I watched her face. She wasn't relaxed. She kept blinking hard like she was holding in tears. I reached over to squeeze her hand. She let me, but barely. Afterward, I tried again. "I don't know how to fix this," I said as we walked back. "But I want to. I love you." She stopped walking. "I don't feel loved," she said. "I feel like a flaw, like I've become something you have to tolerate." Her voice didn't shake. It was calm, dead calm. That scared me more than the tears. "I didn't mean to make you feel that way, but you did." We didn't fight. That was the worst part. I almost wished we had. A fight would mean passion, effort, heat. But she'd gone cold, and when she went cold, I felt like I was alone in a room with the lights off. Later that night, she told me something I didn't expect. "I know I've been snappy," she said, staring out the window. "I know I haven't been easy." I wanted to tell her none of it mattered. That pregnancy hormones, stress, everything, it didn't justify how I'd made her feel. But she wasn't done. "I'm scared all the time," she said, "that something will go wrong, that I won't be a good mom, that you'll stop loving me." I sat next to her, unsure if I had the right to touch her. "I'm not going anywhere," I said. "You already did," she replied, eyes not leaving the horizon. "You just haven't moved your stuff yet." It was the most painful sentence I'd ever heard, and maybe I deserved it. On the 4th night, she threw up from crying. She didn't eat dinner, didn't leave the cabin, just laid there in silence until the sobs came. Then the nausea, then the panic. I held her hair back, cleaned her up. She didn't stop me, but she didn't thank me either. "I feel disgusting," she whispered, wiping her mouth. "I can't even look in the mirror." "You're beautiful," I said. "Don't say that. I mean it." "Then you shouldn't have said what you said." She curled up again. That night, I slept on the floor. I didn't want to, but I didn't want to invade her space either. I just wanted her to feel safe again. The sea never stops moving, even when you want it to. I realized that the next morning, watching sunlight crawl across the thin curtains of our cabin. The ship hummed, steady and endless, but everything inside me felt like it was breaking apart in slow motion. She was still asleep, curled up on her side, one hand resting over her stomach. Our child between us, like a line I'd crossed and couldn't uncross. I made coffee, sat on the balcony again. The horizon was too perfect, a clean blue that made the ugliness in my head louder. When she finally woke up, she didn't look at me, just sat up, rubbed her face, and asked, "What's on the schedule today?" Her tone was flat, polite, like a coworker trying to get through a meeting. "Just the excursion," I said. "Snorkeling, then dinner." "I don't want to go." That was all. I nodded. "Okay." It was like that for most of the day. Careful sentences, small talk over room service, two strangers playing at marriage in matching wristbands. I went alone to the snorkeling trip. The guide cracked jokes, the tourists laughed, and the water was so clear it looked fake. But I couldn't stop thinking about her. I kept picturing her alone in that small cabin, probably crying again. And it wasn't guilt that twisted in my chest. It was shame. Because guilt still centers you. Shame erases you. When I got back, she was sitting on the bed scrolling through her phone. Eyes red, face pale. "You went," she said. Not angry, just confirming a fact. "I thought you wanted time alone." She nodded. "Right." Her phone lit up again. Her sister, probably. She'd been texting family a lot more lately. I couldn't blame her. I wasn't the person she could talk to anymore. You eat? I asked. Yeah. She didn't look up. Don't worry about me. That sentence hurt more than anything else she'd said all week. That night, after dinner, I tried again. I sat beside her on the balcony, 2 glasses of ginger ale between us. The ocean stretched out like a secret neither of us could name. I've been trying to figure out why I said it, I said quietly. Why I said I wasn't attracted to you. She didn't move. I think I was trying to make my own confusion sound rational. Like, if I put words to it, I could control it. But it was cowardly. I was scared. Scared of what? She asked finally, her voice small but sharp. Of failing you. Of not being enough for what's coming. Of not being who you need. She looked at me then, not with anger, with exhaustion, the kind that doesn't just live in the body, but in the soul. So you decided to wound me instead? She asked. I didn't answer. There was no right way to. She set down her glass. I can't keep doing this. I can't be the one you hurt just because you're lost. Her words were steady, and I realized she wasn't talking about the cruise anymore. Later that night, when she was asleep, I opened my phone and scrolled through old photos. Us at 21, sweaty and smiling after a concert. Us in our first apartment with thrift store furniture. Us on our wedding day. Her in that lace dress, laughing so hard she almost snorted. I wondered when I'd stop seeing that her. When I started looking through her instead of at her. Then I looked at her now, sleeping. Her face softer, body different. Sure. But still her. Still the person who once looked at me like I was the whole world. And I couldn't understand why that didn't feel like enough anymore. Maybe the problem wasn't her. Maybe it was that I'd let my own reflection become something I couldn't stand. And I'd mistaken that for her. The next morning I woke to find her gone. Her suitcase was still there, but her robe was missing. Panic hit fast. My mind flashing worst-case scenarios, I threw on a shirt, bolted out of the room, checked the deck, the buffet, the pool. I finally found her in a lounge chair at the very back of the ship, wrapped in that same robe, staring at the water. There were tear streaks on her cheeks, but her expression was calm. I thought, I started, but she cut me off. I needed air, she said. The walls were closing in. I sat next to her. The wind whipped around us, carrying bits of sea spray. I don't want to talk about it, she said after a while. Not right now. Okay. We sat there in silence for almost an hour. Just the hum of the ship and the ocean swallowing everything we didn't say. When she finally spoke again, her voice was quiet. I'm scared to go home. Why? Because I don't know what we'll be when we get there. I wanted to tell her we'd be fine, that love would fix it, that honesty was supposed to heal, but I'd already proven that some truths cut too deep to be bandaged with words. That night, she fell asleep before me again. I watched her breathe, hand resting on the small rise of her stomach. That tiny movement, proof that something was still growing, even if we were breaking. I realized then that maybe love wasn't supposed to feel like safety all the time. Maybe sometimes it was supposed to feel like work. The kind that leaves your hands shaking and your heart sore, but keeps you coming back anyway. I didn't know how to make her forgive me, or if she ever could, but I knew one thing. I wanted to be the man who tried. The last 2 days of the cruise moved like fog, not just for her, for both of us. Everything slowed down, like we were underwater, and every movement took effort. She kept to herself mostly. I tried not to hover. We'd eat in silence or exchange short plans for the day, but the warmth was gone. That quiet intimacy we'd once had, a shared glance, a nudge under the table, an inside joke whispered in the hallway. It all felt like it had been boxed up and packed away. She was grieving, and I knew I had caused it. The morning before we docked, I found her on the balcony again, curled in the ship's blanket, sipping hot tea she must have gotten from the lounge. "You slept," I said, standing in the doorway. "Not really," she replied. I stepped outside, careful not to get too close. "Can I sit?" She shrugged. That was a yes. We watched the water together. I noticed how pale her knuckles were around the cup. "I need to say this," I said finally, "but I don't expect anything back." She turned her head slightly but didn't look at me. I was wrong. Not just what I said, but how I let myself get there. "You're not the problem. You're never the problem. I am." She stayed quiet. I continued. "I don't know who I am right now. I thought I did, but when the future came knocking, when it became real, I panicked. Not because of you, because I didn't know if I deserved any of it." A long beat. Then, "So you tried to push me away?" "Yes." She nodded slowly. "Well, it worked." I looked down. The ocean kept moving. We docked the next morning. The usual chaos, disembarkation lines, customs, shuttles to the airport. But between us, still silence. The car ride home from the airport was an hour and 20 minutes. She didn't play music, just stared out the window, one hand resting on her belly. When we pulled into the driveway, she said, "I'll sleep in the guest room for a while." I nodded. "Okay." We unpacked without speaking. She took her suitcase and closed the guest room door. I stood alone in the hallway for a long time. That first night back, I didn't sleep again. Every creak of the house reminded me she wasn't next to me. I kept waiting to hear her laugh through the bathroom door, or for her cold feet to press against mine under the covers. But nothing came. I went downstairs, opened the fridge, and just stared. I wasn't hungry. I didn't even know why I'd come. I ended up sitting on the couch, scrolling through old photos again. Then I opened a folder on my phone I hadn't looked at in months. The baby announcement videos. Her crying when the test turned positive. Her laughing as we told her parents. Her holding the first sonogram. And suddenly, I wasn't just missing her. I was mourning what I'd destroyed. 2 days later, I knocked on the guest room door. "Yeah?" she called. "I made breakfast. Eggs, toast." A pause. Then the door opened. She looked tired, her hair in a loose bun, a hoodie stretched over her belly. She followed me downstairs without a word. We ate in silence. Halfway through, she asked, "Did you ever stop loving me?" The question hit hard. "No," I said, "not once." "Then why did it feel like you did?" I set my fork down. "Because I stopped loving myself, and I didn't know how to separate that from everything else." She looked at me, for the first time in days, really looked. "I'm not sure I can believe you right now," she said. "Not yet." "I understand. I don't know what I want." "That's okay." She nodded. "I just need space. You can have all the space you need." We sat in silence a while longer, but this time it felt less like a wall and more like a bridge still under construction. A week passed. We found a rhythm. Not together, not apart, just surviving. I worked from home. She had a few doctor appointments I offered to drive her to. Sometimes she accepted. Sometimes she called her sister. The nursery sat half-finished, boxes unopened, walls unpainted. One night, I heard her crying again through the door. This time I didn't knock. I just sat on the floor outside her room and waited. After maybe 20 minutes, the door creaked open. She didn't say anything. She just sat next to me. I didn't touch her. She didn't move closer. But we sat there until morning. The next day, she told me about the panic attacks. I wake up and I forget who I am, she said quietly, curled on the couch in the hoodie again. I forget that I'm not broken. You're not, I said, but I feel like I am. I know. She looked at me, eyes rimmed red. I used to feel so safe with you. I swallowed hard. I want to help you feel that again. I don't know if I can. I'll wait. That weekend I painted the nursery. She hadn't asked me to. I just did it. She stood in the doorway while I worked, arms folded. What color is that? She asked. Soft sage. You pinned it last month? She nodded. Watched me for a while. Later I found her inside the room, running her hand over the crib rails. She's going to be here soon, she whispered. She is. She deserves better than 2 broken parents. I stood beside her. We're not broken, I said. We're healing. She didn't say anything, but she didn't walk away either. It's strange how life doesn't pause when your marriage does. Bills still show up. Groceries still need buying. People still smile at you in the store, like your heart isn't hanging by a thread. The world just keeps spinning, while you quietly try to remember how to breathe. By the second week back home, that was all I could focus on. Breathing, one day at a time, one chore at a time, one conversation at a time. She'd moved back into our room technically, but only because the guest bed had become too uncomfortable for her back. There was still space between us, a canyon of silence where warmth used to be, but at least she was there. And that mattered. I stopped trying to fix everything, started showing up instead. I'd cook breakfast, handle the laundry, run errands before she could ask. Not to earn forgiveness, but to keep the rhythm going. The house had to feel alive, even if we didn't. One evening, I heard her in the nursery again. The soft sound of cardboard tearing, tape peeling. I peeked through the door and saw her opening the box of baby clothes. Little onesies, socks smaller than her thumb. She was folding each one carefully, like ritual. You need help? I asked. No, she said. Then, after a beat, maybe with the shelf. I joined her. We built the small bookshelf in silence. Screws, panels, instructions, the mundane kind of quiet that doesn't hurt. When we finished, she sat down on the rug, rubbing her belly absently. She's moving, she whispered. Here. She took my hand and guided it over the curve of her stomach, a soft flutter, then another, like a tiny heartbeat against my palm. She, I repeated. She smiled faintly. Yeah, it's a girl. I hadn't known. She'd found out at her last appointment, the one she went to without me. For a second, I didn't know what to say. My throat tightened. She's perfect, I said finally. The baby kicked again, and for the first time in weeks, she laughed. Really laughed. That sound filled the room like sunlight breaking through clouds. Later that night, she left the nursery door open. I took it as a sign, not forgiveness, but maybe a small return to trust. We sat on the couch, watching an old movie. Her feet in my lap, absent-mindedly. Not intimacy, but comfort, the kind you don't realize you miss until it's there again. Halfway through the movie, she said quietly, Do you still want this? I paused. Want what? This life. Me. Her. All of it. I looked at her. Really looked. Tired eyes, messy bun, the faint glow of lamplight soft on her face. Yes, I said. I always did. I just lost my way getting here. She nodded slowly. Then find it again. Not for me. For her. For you. The next morning, I went for a run for the first time in months. Not to punish myself, not to escape, just to move. The cold air hit my lungs hard, and it felt good, cleansing in a way I hadn't felt since before the cruise. I ran, until my legs burned, then sat by the park fountain, watching families stroll by. Fathers holding tiny hands, moms pushing strollers. Ordinary moments I'd taken for granted. On the jog home, I stopped by a cafe and bought 2 hot chocolates. When I got back, she was sitting at the kitchen table, laptop open, budgeting spreadsheets pulled up. I placed the cup in front of her. Peace offering. She smiled faintly. You ran? Yeah. I needed it. You look alive again. I'm trying. She nodded. Good. Weeks passed. She started letting me come to her appointments again. Small steps, careful ones. The doctor said everything looked perfect. Our daughter, healthy, strong heartbeat, growing right on track. I cried in the car afterward. Not loud, not messy, just quiet tears that didn't feel like shame anymore. When I looked over, she was crying too. We didn't talk about it. We didn't need to. One night around midnight, I woke to the sound of her whispering. She was sitting on the floor by the crib, talking to our daughter. I hope you know your dad loves you, she said softly. He's trying, baby. We both are. I stayed in the doorway, invisible, listening. He's not perfect, she went on. Neither am I. But you're going to be surrounded by love, even when we screw up. Her voice cracked on that last word. I walked over, knelt beside her. She didn't flinch this time when I put my arm around her. She leaned her head against my shoulder. I don't want to hate you, she whispered. I don't want to give you a reason to, I said. For the first time since the cruise, the silence between us wasn't empty. A few days later, we went to her favorite park, a place we hadn't visited since before the pregnancy. The lake shimmered, the benches empty. I brought a blanket. We sat quietly, watching ducks float by. She took a deep breath. I've been thinking. About what? About us. About forgiveness. I braced myself. I don't know if I can forget what you said, she continued. I don't think I should, but I think I can understand why you broke the way you did. I looked at her, unsure if that was a mercy or another wound. I can't promise I'll wake up tomorrow and feel fine, she said, but I can promise I'll try because I still see you under all that fear. My eyes burned. I don't deserve that. Maybe not, she said, smiling softly, but I'm giving it anyway. We sat there until the sky turned pink. She leaned her head on my shoulder again. The baby kicked, faint but sure, and for the first time, it felt like maybe we were moving forward, not back. That night before bed, I wrote her a letter, not an apology. She'd had enough of those, a promise. I wrote about wanting to be better, about showing up even when it was hard, about choosing her every day, even on the days she couldn't choose me back. I slipped it onto her nightstand before she woke. When I came home from work the next day, the letter was gone. In its place, a single sticky note, keep choosing. And I did. The morning she went into labor, the house was quiet. I woke to her voice, not panicked, just firm. It's time. The clock read 5:32. Early light pushing through the blinds. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, one hand gripping the sheet, the other over her stomach. Sweat at her temple, calm eyes, brave eyes. I moved fast. Hospital bag, car keys, jacket. My hands were shaking, but her voice stayed steady. Breathe, she said. We're okay. It hit me then. How much she'd changed. How much we both had. She wasn't fragile. She wasn't the woman on that cruise ship crying into the pillow. She was stronger now. Maybe because she'd had to be. We got to the hospital just after sunrise. The nurse took her vitals, checked dilation, smiled. You're ready, Mama. She looked at me, fear flickering behind her exhaustion. Stay with me? Always. Labor was long. 17 hours, give or take. I lost count of the clock hands turning, the nurses rotating shifts. Time became something elastic. Just her breaths, her cries, her courage. When she squeezed my hand, I squeezed back. When she cursed at me, I laughed. When she whispered that she couldn't do it, I whispered, "You already are." At one point, between contractions, she looked up at me and said, "Do you still think I'm beautiful?" I didn't hesitate. "More than ever." She smiled, a small, tired smile. Good answer. At 8:47 that night, our daughter arrived. She came out crying, a fierce, raw cry that filled every corner of that sterile room. And I swear, in that sound, something inside me snapped back into place. The nurse placed her on my wife's chest, tiny, red, perfect. I looked at them, the two people I'd almost lost because I didn't know how to love through fear. And I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Not relief. Peace. The kind that doesn't erase the past but holds it gently. We stayed in the hospital for 2 days. Visitors came and went. Her family brought flowers, snacks, stories. Everyone took turns holding the baby. Everyone except me. I couldn't bring myself to let go once she was in my arms. That second night, the baby finally slept. My wife dozed off too. I sat there in the dim light, holding our daughter against my chest, feeling her heartbeat sync with mine. So small, so alive, so dependent on us. I whispered, "You saved us, kiddo. You don't even know it yet." Back home, the house felt different. The air was softer somehow. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was sacred. Late nights became our new normal. Bottles, burp cloths, lullabies. Sometimes we'd bump into each other in the hallway, both half asleep, and just laugh. The kind of laugh that forgives without asking to. One night, as I rocked the baby, she leaned against the doorframe watching me. "You're good with her," she said. "She's easy to love." She smiled. "You're better too." I raised an eyebrow. "Better?" "Yeah," she said. "You stopped running." I thought about that cruise, the balcony, the cold silence, the words I had thrown like knives. And she was right. I'd been running from myself, from the mirror, from the weight of love that demanded growth. Now, holding our daughter, I wasn't running anymore. Months passed. Spring bled into summer. Our daughter grew. So did we. We started therapy. Separately at first, then together. Hard sessions, ugly ones, but necessary. We learned new languages of apology, new rituals of trust. She learned to believe me again. I learned to believe in myself. And slowly, quietly, the distance between us began to fade. Sometimes I'd catch her looking at me while feeding the baby, that soft half smile I hadn't seen since before everything broke. Other times, I'd wake up to her hand resting on my chest, like nothing had ever come between us. But we both knew better. Something had come between us. We just built a bridge over it. Our first anniversary after the baby, we didn't do anything fancy. No cruises, no getaways, just dinner at home, takeout, candles, the baby monitor blinking softly beside the plates. After dessert, she handed me a small envelope. Inside was a photo. The three of us asleep on the couch, the baby between us. She'd written on the back, "This is what love looks like when it's honest." I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. It's been a year now since that cruise. We still argue, still have bad days, still get tired. But there's no silence that feels like drowning anymore. No words left unspoken long enough to rot. I've learned that attraction isn't just about the surface. It's about showing up when it's ugly, when the glow is gone,
when love has to be rebuilt from the wreckage you caused. Sometimes she still asks me, "Do you ever think about what you said?" And I tell her the truth, every day, because it reminds me what I almost lost. This morning, I walked into the nursery, sunlight on the walls, toys scattered everywhere. Our daughter was standing, holding on to the crib rail, grinning that toothless grin that could melt anything. My wife was behind her, half asleep, hair a mess, wearing the same green dress from the cruise, now faded, softer, but somehow even more beautiful. She looked at me and laughed. "Don't say it." "Say what?" "That I look tired." I smiled. "You look like everything I ever wanted."
She shook her head, pretending to be annoyed, but I saw the corners of her mouth curve. The baby squealed. We both laughed. And in that sound, I knew this was our piece. Not perfect, not cinematic, but real. If this story moved you, subscribe for more real-life confessions and emotional journeys like this one.